The column that got me here tonight, for which I'm grateful to it, contained the following sentence, and this is the one that got me into trouble. Roger mentioned it. I said, quote, "Colleges and universities are learning that when they say campus victimizations are ubiquitous, and when they make victimhood a coveted status that confers privileges, victims will proliferate. And to ensure that they proliferate, we have minted the doctrine of microaggressions and to the idea that one has an entitlement in our entitlement society to a cocoon of serenity everywhere." Well, as proof of this, I give you the following. I mentioned the Princeton Graduate School. No one at the Princeton Graduate School pays a dime of their expenses. They are, by any measure, the top 1/1000th of 1% of the most privileged people who ever lived on this planet. And a few of them, to wit, the Black Graduate Caucus, the Latino Graduate Student Association, and Graduate Women of Color, recently sent the following protest note to the Princeton administration because Princeton had shuffled their diversity and multicultural and sensitivity bureaucracy by adding 2 new people. Their protest said this: "Princeton University has deepened the anguish and intensified the alienation of its graduate students of color." Stop laughing, this is serious business here. "Students of color are constantly besieged by the racism at Princeton. Surviving Princeton for students like us is more than a struggle. It is a battle for one's life and sanity, for the dignity of one's non-white flesh." Now, how did we get here? Now, infants have 3 things in common. They are fragile, they are easily frightened, and they require constant supervision. This is what has given us the very odd picture of today's modern feminism. Modern feminism, as I understood it, began as an assertion above all of the equal moral agency of women. Now it is a postulate of the special fragility and vulnerability of women, who are, because of their weaknesses, exempt from their responsibilities, hence the neo-Victorianism of the current brouhaha about sexual codes on campus. But fragility is now a common and indeed celebrated alleged fact about young people on campuses. A recent column in the New York Times Sunday edition mentioned how when Brown University invited a speaker who it was feared would dispute some of the current hysteria about the rape culture on campus, they didn't disinvite the speaker, but they prepared for the terror of the speaker. They proclaimed and created a safe space for those who would be traumatized by the speaker's appearance in Rhode Island. It was a space to recuperate, they said, from the experience. The space would be complete with, and again, I'm not making this up, cookies, coloring books, Play-Doh, calming music, pillows, blankets, and videos of frolicking puppies. Third, the current nonsense on and about campuses really does, if you stand back and let it, add to the public stock of harmless amusement. For example, we have learned that there are 93 members of the California State Legislature who have never had sex. How do I know that? I know that because they passed the affirmative consent law, which says, this is the guidance to these hormonal young men and women on campuses, it says there must be affirmative, conscious, and voluntary agreement at every stage of a sexual activity. The authors of that do not know what they're talking about.
And use their same arguments in reverse.
No, we don't want to get into a sensitivity sweepstake here. there's a great deal to be said for insensitivity. There's a great deal to be said when someone says, well, you've hurt my feelings, to say politely but firmly, I don't care really about your feelings. Someone once asked General George Marshall, he said, what are your feelings about something? He says, I reserve my feelings for Mrs. Marshall. Laughter is the most ruinous thing you can direct at these people. They must be,